back, everyone. In this lesson, we'll talk about typecasting. In the previous lesson, you learned about variables and types. As we know, Java is a static type language. Once you specify the type of a variable, it will always be that type. Types also come in all shapes and forms. For example, the byte type is 1 byte of size, and also the range values are from -128 to 127. And here we have a table of all the types, their size in bytes, and their range values. So if Java is a static type language, how can we turn a byte type into an int type, or vice versa, an int type into a byte type? Well, this is where typecasting comes in. There are two types of casting: explicit casting and implicit casting. Let's go to a code example to explain when to use each type of casting. Here I have a regular Java class, and let's go back to our example into trying to turn an int into a byte. Also, I'll keep the range tables and the size tables on the right hand side, so we're always aware of what we could do with the sizes. Let's first try to turn an int into a byte. So int I equals to 120, just a integer, byte b equals to, and let's just try to set it to I and print what byte is. B. And let's go back to the terminal, Java C casting. And we see that we get a compiling error. The reason why we get this error is because an int type is bigger in size than a byte type. So when we try to convert it down, we run into problems. We run into a problem that we could lose precision or conversion. So how do we get around that? Well, we could use explicit casting. To explicit cast the integer, we simply say, all right, we want the integer to be a byte type. And just like that, the compiler will turn this integer value into a byte. Now let's run the compiler again, and let's see what happens. And let's run, well, we get no compiling error. Let's run the file or the class, and we get 120. So this conversion worked perfect. We turned the 120 integer value into a 120 byte value. But what will happen if the integer value was not 120, but a value beyond the range of what a byte could be? Well, let's test it out. And let's try 130. And let's keep this the same way that it is. And run the compiler, and then run the class. So we don't get a compiling error, but you see that B is this weird -126. I won't go too much into why it's -126, but you should be always aware of the values when you're casting down. So from a bigger type into a smaller type. Okay, so let's go vice versa. Let's try to turn an int I, or excuse me, let's try to turn a byte into an int. Well, byte is smaller, so let's say byte b equals to 127, and let's try to say int equals to b, int I equals to b, and let's try to print out what I is. Java C, oops, let's do this, and run Java casting. And as you can see, we get it with no problem. This is what is called implicit casting. When we're going from a smaller type into a bigger type, then we get no problem because it has a bigger size, so it could hold anything that a smaller size has. So these are the two types of casting, implicit and explicit. In the example here, we have explicit casting of turning doubles into int, casting down. And here we have an implicit casting of turning an int into a float, which is casting up.